before becoming securely attached. So after you have done this writing, you have really looked at the reality of your relationship with that caretaker, where that attachment wound first started. The most important thing to gain from that is to look at how that has affected the way that you feel about yourself and the narratives that you tell yourself. Because insecurely attached people have constant narratives running in their head all the time. So an avoidant person has narratives like, I can't open up to this person because they might reject me. I can't commit to this person or put a label on it because I'm going to lose my independence, and that's scary. Anxious people have narratives of like, I'm not enough. I'm never going to be enough. This is all I deserve, so I better stay in this relationship. I'll never find anybody better. We have to understand is that these narratives began in childhood. We had to create these narratives for our survival, but they are no longer working, and they are lies. These things are not true, okay? They are just things that we have told ourselves based on our attachment wounds and our trauma. The next step is self-awareness around our part in our relationships. Both avoidant people and anxious people have a very hard time taking accountability for the way that their attachment manifests in their life. Avoidant people will often like suppress it. They hide from it, they run from it, they don't even want to talk about it, they don't want to deal with it, they don't want to look at it, whatever. Anxious people will dive into all this information about avoidance and blah, blah, blah. But anxious people have a tendency to deny that they have done anything to cause any harm in their relationships. Like, anxious people have a tendency to be the ultimate victim. Like, everything is always happening to me. I'm just a nice person. I'm not bringing this upon myself. Like, all I want is to find love, and people just never treat me right. They always take advantage of me. This was my narrative, because starting from a young age, like a teenager, when I started getting into relationships, I was always being taken advantage of. I was always being used by men. I was always being like ghosted or ending up in these toxic situations where like these men did not care about me and did not treat me well. I ended up in, a long-term abusive relationship. I ended up with avoidance. I never ever had anyone that I felt like truly cared about me. And from my perspective, all I ever wanted was just to love these people and like give them everything they want and like be super nurturing and caring. And so for the longest time I had this narrative that like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, these people are just doing this to me over and over, and like, I'm the victim here. And as an avoidant, you may have a different type of narrative. Your narrative might be like, why does everybody need so much from me all the time? Like, I've always had to do everything. I've always had to be so independent and like take on everything. And every time I get into a relationship, people want so much from me, and they become so emotional and so sensitive, and like, can't they let it be? Why does it have to be so much? Everybody has this narrative about their life where they are, the victim of their circumstances, where they are not the one causing any problems, because it's easier that way. You don't have to feel so much pain. It is painful to have to look at yourself and logically say, there are things I'm doing that are causing this pattern to continue. Because if you really think about it, healing your attachment is only something you can do. It is something you choose, and it is only something you can do. Like, you can't get someone to heal your attachment for you. You can eventually get into a relationship that can be very healing, and you can have someone that really loves you and that can, help to further heal you. But like, initial healing like has to start with you. And so one thing that I did, and it's really funny how this even started because it had nothing to do with attachment, but it just so happened to work. So as a recovering addict, I've always been in Alcoholics Anonymous, and there are 12 steps that you have to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the fourth step is writing out this inventory, because essentially addicts are, when you're in active addiction, you become very, very selfish, and you become a constant victim, like a pathological victim of all your circumstances. Everything is everybody else's fault. You never do anything wrong, like blah, blah, blah. It's all about you. It's very self-centered. So the fourth step is taking an active look at your relationships and the part that you have played in your relationships. So what you do in the fourth step, which I would advise all of you to do this, it has nothing to do with being an alcoholic. It has everything to do with coming to terms with the reality of your patterns of behavior. Essentially, you write out every single person, place, or thing that you resent. And we have a lot of resentments just as human beings. We just do. Like, I resent my exes for the ways that they treated me. There's a million things. Once you start thinking about it, you'll come up with so many things. You write out a list of everybody that you resent, anything that you resent. Then you're going to write out all the ways that they harmed you. Why do you resent them? What did they do to harm you? Then in the third column, you are going to write out any part that you played in that relationship. You have to be like very, very honest with yourself in this process. And there are going to be relationships that were like a power differential or abusive or unfair. So for instance, I had a relationship where I was with an abuser. It started off on a power differential, and that wasn't my fault. Like, two things can be true at the same time. We can understand that there are certain dynamics where like that wasn't our fault. Maybe you have an SA situation, so you resent someone that SA'd you. Your part in that situation might simply be that having that happen to you created a narrative in your mind where you feel like you are worthless, you feel like you are nothing, and you now carry that with you. But a lot of times when we look realistically at our relationships, like just random, because I've had so many relationships, and I've had relationships that were toxic, but it wasn't an abuse dynamic, it was just two people that were toxic together, right? And there were a lot of things that I did in those relationships that harmed the other person, even if I wasn't meaning to, especially when I was in my addiction. What you'll start to notice after you get this done, and it does take a while, so you really have to be committed and willing to the process, but once you get it done, you'll really start to see a lot of your own patterns and a lot of the ways that you have contributed to the own demise of your relationships or just harm that has happened in your life. To be clear, this is not about fault finding. This is not about, oh, let me do this so I can blame myself for every bad thing I ever did. This is about self-awareness, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So if you don't know your patterns of behavior and how they are causing harm for you, you will never be able to change them. And this is a really important step to be able to look at those things. Go to part 3.